I bear witness that there is no God worth of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his final slave and messenger.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of Diary of a Common Man. My name is Salim Lalani. In this episode, we are going to cover a couple of very important issues. We are actually going to talk about how does Aga Khan and his system avoid paying taxes throughout the world, wherever the Murids are, wherever the Jamaat Khanas are, and how do they manage it, and how do they conduct money laundering activities. So we are going to go into the details of the process as to how does it all work. So before that, actually, we will start this episode with an ayat in the Quran, which is unrelated to tax and money laundering. It is about adultery. I just happen to remember that ayat. I think it is Surah Isra, and ayat number is 32. In that ayat, Allah says, "Keep away from adultery." In Quran, the adultery is called in Arabic. It's called zina, and zina is a extremely serious crime in Islam. And Aga Khan has been caught twice violating the Quran. So, having said that, let's begin the discussion. Last week, we had Ask Me Anything, and if you remember, that Ask Me Anything was organized for my Hunza brothers and sisters to express their anger, express their thoughts about how do they see my work, good or bad. If you remember, they had been abusing me, and they stopped abusing me. I since found out actually they didn't stop abusing me. They actually got together and reported my Facebook page to Facebook, and they have put a restriction on it. In other words, cowards can only do that. They can stop the freedom of speech behind somebody's back. They can abuse people behind somebody's back, but they will not front Salim Lalani. They will not face him. Okay, even though Salim Lalani gave them the opportunity to speak their mind in the open, but they did not choose to do that. They chose being cowards. So the good things I had to say about my Hunza Gilgit brothers and sisters last week, unfortunately, I'll have to take them back. I take my words back. I thought they had used common sense and they have stopped abusing me, but that is not the case. They actually tried to suppress my voice and they did not show up to face me. So I'm going to leave you alone. I will have my Facebook page back, no doubt about it. Don't you worry. I will speak. You will not be able to suppress my voice. And from now on onwards, you are as much cowards as your Khoja brothers and sisters are. Yep. All right. Let's move on. Yet another issue that we need to talk about is I have been invited by a couple of other YouTube channels to speak on their channel and make their audience aware of my work. Now, both these channels are operated by individuals who are not Muslims, let's put it that way. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't look at who is a Muslim and who is not a Muslim. I am, I think I'm beyond all that. Okay. The discrimination of humankind by religion, uh, I don't care. But apparently people do. And some of my listeners, they do. And a couple of them have sent me some messages basically criticizing me on expressing myself on their channel. So I asked them what is the problem with their channel, and they say they are anti-Islam. Now, who they are and who you are, I have nothing to do with that. I will not take an anti-Islam approach. Doesn't matter who it is. Okay? Number one. I only go there because they invited me to talk about my work. I did not go there to basically talk about their agenda. Okay? Having said that, in the future, I will not hide this from my Muslim brothers and sisters. In future, anybody invites me, whether it is a Muslim, whether it is a Hindu, whether they belong to BJP or whether they belong to All India Muslim League, whether they belong to right or left, I don't care. What I care about is how to make this world a better place to live in. And if anybody should invite me on their channel, I will express my views, including my thoughts on Islam, including my thoughts on how we can portray Islam in a better way in the world. At the moment, it is portrayed in a very, very negative way. And I have my thoughts about how to portray it in a positive angle. Yeah. So I will express myself. And in that process, remember, I will ask for reforms. I will ask for the Muslim Ummah to realize that this day and age, this age of information is not compatible with the age that we saw in Arabia 1400 years ago. So I will express myself. My purpose, my intention is only and only to make this world a better place, including make this world a better place for my Muslim brothers and sisters. And I want to see Islam and other religions in the right light. Okay. Whether I believe in them or not, it's another matter completely. Okay. I don't have to believe in them or follow them to learn from them. Yeah. So these are some thoughts. So please don't worry about me going to Hindu channels. Rest assured, wherever I go, I will not be biased in any way. My purpose is not to harm Islam or to harm Hinduism or to harm Christianity. My purpose is one and one only, and that is to make this world a better place to live in. Okay. The third thing we need to talk about is that somebody has made a suggestion actually today, and I like that suggestion. The suggestion is that I should meet with my supporters around the world every week via online meetings or Zoom or what have you. They say that the reason why that is important is people are talking amongst themselves in many countries about me and my work. And they are sometimes, um, they seem to get conflicting messages and they seem to be arguing with each other. So, what they're saying is that why don't we get Salim once a week online? And if we have any comments to make, or if we have any clarifications that are required, why don't we have Salim and get him to clarify certain situations? So I think there is a lot of merit in that suggestion, and hence I'm announcing a weekly meeting which is called Gupshup with Salim. It'll happen on every Saturday. I will send you a post giving you the details of the meeting every week, and the link to join the meeting will be under my videos, this video and other videos to come. So please join me on every Saturday and express yourself, whether it be comments, suggestions, advice for me, or just venting out your anger or seeking clarification. Please come and join us. Okay, let's start talking about tax avoidance and money laundering activities in Ismaili or Agakhani Jamaat Khanas. Before we start, we will basically understand the history of money and Imam. It all started about 1,000 years ago when the Fatimid Empire was transferred over or taken away from the Nizari Agakhani Imam, uh, Imam Nizar. This happened in Cairo, in Egypt. And unfortunately, Imam Nizar's father was a caliph of Fatimid Empire. But unfortunately, Imam Nizar not only could not acquire the throne of being a caliph, but he was actually killed by his younger brother Musta'li. So it was a sad story as far as Nizar was concerned, that the kingdom was basically, he couldn't inherit it. But Nizar's assassination also triggered a period in Ismaili history or Nizari history, because Nizari history is from after the death of Nizar. After the death of Nizar, Nizaris struggled to make ends meet, struggled to survive on a daily basis. And to improve that situation, a couple of dais or missionaries or commander-in-chiefs of Imam Mustansir Billah, they basically started searching for new pastures in case they could settle somewhere with the security of food, clothing, and shelter. Hassan Sabba escaped to Iran, where he established the Almut Nizari settlement, which lasted a few hundred years. But more importantly than that was another Dai, Sayyid Nuruddin Muhammad. He traveled to India And in India, he basically convinced the Hindus that Imam of the time was the Hindu avatar. Imam of the time was the avatar of Vishnu, the Hindu god, and we should basically pay him money. Because at the end of the day, remember, the whole Nizari system was looking for financial security. So money was very, very important. Now, Peers convinced the Hindus. The system of Dason started. Dason is 10% of a murid's, a follower's income, which belongs to the Imam. That system started, and other dues were taken from the murids. But the problem was that the Imam in those days lived in Iran and the murids were in India. This is the Hindu murids that were converted into Khojas. We are not talking about the murids converted by Nasir Khusro in the mountainous regions of Central Asia or North Pakistan or Afghanistan. So the peer used to take the money, cash, by foot, travel from India to Iran by foot, and deliver the money to the Imam of the time. Sometimes they may have used the ships and all that to travel, but the travel was not easy. Let me put it that way, and it took a lot of time and the risk of life. So that's how much convinced they were about the Nizari movement to keep it alive. They needed money. So India became one source of that money. So a tradition began from there. The money would be given to the representatives of the Imam, and the money would be transferred from wherever the murids were to wherever the Imam was. That is the background. But then in those days, 1,000 years ago, taxation was not as complex, and the disclosure requirements were not as stringent. But when British came, they started a system of taxation and requirement to lodge returns so that they could tax the tax people and run the country. Whether run the country in India, whether run the country in Britain, that's another debate. But yeah, they started taxing in 1860. And in those days, the Imam of the time was Agakhan I. And I don't know how he dealt with the taxation, because he was living amongst his murids in the later part of his life in India. So it was very easy for him to collect the dasond and the religious dues. Whether he paid taxes or not, we don't know. Same thing with Aga Khan too. He lived amongst his murids in India, and he died after a very short term in the Imamat office. Then came the legend, Aga Khan III, and he partly lived in India and partly lived in Europe. First part a little bit in India, and then after 20 years, he actually became a European, and he remained a European for next 60 years of his life. In relation to India, his time in India, the religious dues and the administration and that kind of stuff was handled by his mother, Lady Alicia. And she managed the finances and all that. She was very shrewd financially. She was actually a good investor. In particular, she was a good property investor. But then Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan III moved to Europe, and he expected the money to be transferred to Europe. And to date, the Imam is in Europe and he expects the money to be transferred from all over the world to Europe. Now, before we go to the current Aga Khan, the way it is all set up, which is very, very, very complex, and for a purpose, the complexity is a smokescreen to basically mislead the global community. But we'll talk about that a bit later. Coming to Sultan Muhammad Shah's time, things were much simpler, and somehow he managed. He did have, I have read somewhere that he had major tax issues with the British government, particularly after British basically disowned him after World War II. But we will not discuss his tax problems or the way he got the money transferred across to Europe. But one thing he did is he lived in Switzerland, apart from living in France and England. And the same thing Aga Khan, the current Aga Khan, has done. And there was a reason for that. British citizenship was a given. They were friends of British and they had spied for the British. Sultan Muhammad Shah in particular, and if you remember, Aga Khan I was a British mercenary. So British citizenship was a given. France was a place where basically the residence was in France. And Switzerland, because Switzerland supported banking secrecy. Lately, Switzerland has been pressurized by the global community to make improvements or rather give up the banking secrecy. And they have basically made some inroads into that. They have made some good progress, whereby they are now requiring people to report the money, report the identity of the person. So things are becoming difficult for crooks like Aga Khan to deposit the money, the politicians and all the dons of the world. But yeah, so Sultan Muhammad Shah may have managed somehow, but let's come to the time of Karim Aga Khan. With Karim Aga Khan, we will have to break the period into three parts. The discussion on tax avoidance and money laundering, we'll have to break it in three parts. From 1957, when he basically became the Imam, to 1991. That's the first period. Then the year 1991, it is significant. And then the third and the last period is 1991 to now. We may have time to discuss all the three periods today in this episode. If not, we will continue this discussion in the next episode. So let's start with the first period, 1957 to 1991. This period was a golden period for Aga Khan because Switzerland was very much allowing banking secrecy. In other words, anybody could deposit any amount of money in a Swiss bank in cash, and they could do that without identifying themselves. And this was God sent for the God that we call Agakhan. Because all the cash, remember the Jamaat Khana revenues are taken in cash. Nowadays, they are also taken via checks, but that's a completely different discussion that we are going to have. In those days, it was mostly, I would say, in cash. So the way it worked in those days is this. Remember, the basic idea is the money is in the Jamaat Khana and Aga Khan's bank account is in Switzerland. So imagine so many countries with so many Jamaat Khanas. All these Jamaat Khanas, all the councils have to basically send the money to one place which is called Switzerland, Geneva, Lloyd's bank account, which belongs to Aga Khan. Now, how does all the councils across the world send the money to one account? They don't. Because Aga Khan he doesn't want to do anything wrong. Remember, anything wrong will be done by the Murids. And that is why I call them morons. Murids will do the wrong thing. They will break the law of the country for the Imam. Yeah. And we'll take a few examples about how Murids get in trouble and they still don't learn the lesson. So, I was saying, he does not receive, Aga Khan does not receive the money from all the councils. This is in that period. He has a Murid open a Swiss bank account in his own name. In this case, I have one name more towards 1991, and that name was Tajuddin Kurji. And the reason why I know Tajuddin Kurji is I have watched that documentary by Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where Tajuddin Kurji was not only named but shamed, and so was Aga Khan. So Tajuddin Kurji has a bank account in Geneva in a bank called Multi Commercial. Aga Khan has got the account in the same city, Geneva, but his bank is Lloyd's Bank. The money from across the world, they go to Tajuddin Kurji's bank account, not Aga Khan's. Now, the money has arrived there. The transfer is easy from Kurji to Aga Khan. Why? Aga Khan didn't want any trace to be left leading to him. So the money that is laundered by the councils across the world should not go to his bank account. It should go to Tajuddin Kurji's account. Come tomorrow, there is trouble. Tajuddin Kurji hangs by the noose, not Aga Khan. So, I hope you understand how much of a coward this man Aga Khan is. No shame, no conscience at all. Imagine. Anyway. So now that you understand that money will go to Kurji's account or somebody like Kurji transfer to Aga Khan's account. But how does the money, the cash money, get to Kurji's account from across the world? And the answer to that is, it was provided by the United States and Canadian government investigation into this fraud. What happens is every country, Pakistan, India, Africa, United States, Canada, UK, a murid is picked from the Jamaat Khana. We will call this murid a mule. You know how there are drug mules? Mule is a kind of a donkey, okay? And he carries a load. So this mule is selected in the Jamaat Khana. And we'll talk about a couple of real life mules in a minute, or maybe next episode. Yeah, so these mules are selected from each Jamaat Khana or each region or whatever the situation is. And that mule, the donkey, takes the load, that is the money, cash in a suitcase, and break the law of the country, not declare what is in the suitcase, and take the risk. People have been caught, they have been put in jail doing this work for Agakhan, the Agakhani Murids. Okay, so they take the risk, they take the cash and take it to Geneva, put it in the bank, come back, they get a commission. $1 million, $50,000 commission. Make 2 trips, $100,000 a year. You're laughing all the way. All you are doing is you are basically breaking the law of the country, but so what? You're doing it for good purpose, aren't you? You are being unethical for an ethical imam, remember? You are being pluralistic, you are being for this imam, yeah? So then that's how the money from across the world gets into Tajuddin Kurji's account, and Kurji then puts it now in Aga Khan's account. Now what Aga Khan does with that money, remember in the Jamaat Khana, you are told that Mola Bapa spends the money for good purpose, correct or not correct? Yes? When did Mola Bapa use that money? Question number 1, for good purpose. Any one Ismaili can come on my channel and say that. When did he do that? Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars that he has received since 1957 to now in his Lloyd's bank account. How much of that he has used for good purpose? Any one murid can dare to come on my channel and substantiate it. And if you cannot substantiate it, do not dare to make that suggestion ever again. The money that arrives in Lloyd's Bank is more than likely used for his personal expenses, not for the charity. Because I have emailed Agakhan Development Network twice. You can too. In fact, I encourage all of you to email Agakhan Development Network and ask them, say this, that okay, on your website, AKDN website, it clearly says Agakhan makes a contribution to AKDN activities. I sent an email that okay, how much did Agakhan contribute to AKDN activities? What answer did I get? I didn't get an answer. Nobody knows. So we will assume that the silence means they are up to no good. Agakhan is up to no good. Otherwise, he would have first of all reported the amount on the financial statements and put it on the website, update it In 21, Agakhan donated this much. In 22, Agakhan donated that much. Is that so difficult to do? Update the website? Yeah. But no, he wouldn't do that because he is up to no good. So, what we have covered today is the history of how this money requirement or the need started in the Agakhani system. And we have now come to Aga Khan's era, where we see the Imam is living in Europe and how he gets money from different countries around the world, deposited stealthily via his murid into his bank account. Next week, we will deal with 1991 and why it is so important. And then we will deal the era between 1991 to 2022. And we will see how complex, how low Aga Khan has fallen to avoid the tax and avoid doing the right thing. We will study all that, we will analyze all that. In the meanwhile, you take care of yourself. Remember, I will send you a link and the timings for our Gupshup with Salim for every Saturday. I'll see you there. Take care.